Thank you very much, Kevin. It's really great to be sharing some ideas with people today. And it's all around blended learning with African song and dance. So the main objective today is to share some African music and dance. And I know you might be thinking, how's she going to do that? I do have my ways through the screen, through blended learning. And to compare some, actually, we won't be comparing the music software today because that component fell through just before people came to the presentation. But we will be using some music software. So blended learning is combining practical classroom methods and technology, which we will do today. And this unit of work uses Sound Infusion software, a Liberian song called Banua. It's a game song and it's lots of fun. Some video footage of African children making music and some West African dance moves. And there'll be time at the end of the session today for questions and discussion, as Kevin said. But if you have a burning question, pop it into the chat and we'll make sure that gets talked about at the end. So I thought I'd give you a bit of a background about cultural infusion. So as we said at the start, I do teach 3 days a week at Alphington Primary School. I'm a performing arts teacher and I teach from prep to year 6 at that school. But I also 2 days a week do work for Cultural Infusion, and I'm using some of their resources this evening. So they were founded in 2002 as an event management company, and in 2010 began schools programs, which is the programs that they have all over Australia today. And they just passed the milestone this year of the 6 millionth student experiencing cultural infusion incursions, which I think is a great achievement and just wonderful for that array of diversity and culture being spread through schools, because sometimes I know teachers find it a challenge to address that component of the curriculum. So having that occurring is great. There's a dancing lesson plan that I'm using that is actually from the Cultural Infusion program that accompanies the rhythms and instruments of West Africa incursion. So the one that I use for dance today accompanies that program. So Cultural Infusion developed a technological program called Sound Infusion, which is an arranging tool that has lots and lots of instrument sounds from all over the world. So I'll demonstrate a little bit from that. It's won lots of awards. In 2019, it was used by the wonderful Music Countersin program, which I know a lot of us are mourning the loss of. It didn't occur last year. I'm doubting it will occur this year. But in 2019, Cultural Infusion's Sound Infusion program was used with this Music Countersin composition competition. So it's an interactive music program enabling students to combine the sounds of instruments of many cultures. It includes many, many tracks of many traditional instruments from over 100 countries and 50 lesson plans from years 1 to 10 linked to the Australian curriculum and International Baccalaureate. I'm just going to play you a little demonstration that shows you a little bit about Sound Infusion before I can then go in and demonstrate how we're going to use it as part of our blended learning today. So blended learning step 1 is using that program, which uses sounds of instruments from around the world. We're going to select some from Africa, from West Africa, actually. So we had a look at a demonstration video. I'm going to actually, when I go in to use the program today, use it sort of from the bottom up, because all the way through the program, they use specific instrument classifications that a lot of people are aware of and are widely used. But for people who are more used to the Western classification, such as woodwind, brass, string, percussion, it might be a bit confusing. So I wanted to show that one to you first. Then we're going to look at the world map, where a lot of the instrument sounds are displayed, as well as images of the instruments. And you can get a sense of the geography of where the Tanzania and Congo instruments are on the map. And then I'll demonstrate the studio by using those sounds, and I'll show you some things about that. And what I probably won't have time to show you today is that I was going to show maybe an example of a lesson plan about timbre, but I don't think we'll have time, but that's in one of the 50 lesson plans. And how you can onboard students. So you can onboard whole classes of students using either CSV files or Google Classroom. And I would like to tell you, before we go into looking at our technological part of our blended learning, just a little anecdote about a Year 3 student and her experience in the classroom earlier this year that I think is just a good little tale, because when you do work where you are encouraging students to listen to and use sounds from other cultures, sometimes issues come up that you wouldn't expect, and you do have to be quite adaptable and sensitive to where students are coming from on that. So what I'm talking about is, we were having a class where we were using Sound Infusion, and the students were asked to get into pairs, and each pair find some sounds from their own culture and share those together in a composition and then share to the class. When it came turn for this particular student, she's a very confident student and usually very enthusiastic about performing arts. She was very quiet, and when I asked her if she had anything to show from her family background, she just said, no, I decided to focus on the Japanese music that my partner was showing. And I left it at that and didn't push it. But I did, when I was on yard duty for a couple of weeks in a row, just make a point of talking to her. And eventually I did ask her about the lesson and why she wasn't sharing. And she just said, Nisha, my mum plays Bollywood all day. She watches Bollywood movies constantly, and I just hate it, and it's really boring, and I just couldn't be bothered. And so here was me assuming that there was something wrong, or that, you know, she was having trouble at school fitting in. Well, I didn't think that, because she's very confident, but, you know, why wasn't she sharing? And this was the reason. So yeah, it can bring up all sorts of things. Most of the time I find students are very open to sharing about their cultural background, and they love delving into it. But there can occasionally be a reason where you have to support or think about differently what a student's going through. So I'll now go to share something from Sound Infusion. So this is a website I'm going to now, and I did have it up already. I'm hoping it's going to behave itself. Yeah, I might need to go in and share it differently. Let's just see if I can. Yeah, I had it all ready to go. It is behaving very differently. What I'm going to do is I'm going to stop sharing my PowerPoint for a minute and then go in differently to share my screen. And I should be able to find it. My apologies for the delay. There it is. PowerPoint, Zoom, share. You should be able to go into, not the whiteboard, no. Technical difficulties, who would have thunk it? Okay, I'll try again, sharing my screen, and it's there. Okay, so Kevin, are you there?
Yes, I'm here.
Can you see that membranophone?
Yes, yep, I can see that.
My apologies for the glitches there. So I'm at the bottom of the how-to menu for Sound Infusion. And I'm just showing you that there is a whole area that explains about the instrument types and the way that they are listed. This is, as I said, this is just a way of categorizing instruments that's used all over the world, but some people may not have come across it. So I just thought I'd show you where that information is if you decide to go and have a look at Sound Infusion and you're like, oh, what were these again? How do I explain this? I mean, this could be part of your first lesson even, depending how you wanted to use Sound Infusion. So it's all there. So for today, I was going to start at the map, which I've just clicked on here, and hopefully if it's behaving, it will come up. There it is. And as you can see, those ways of categorizing sounds are listed at the top. If you click on them, they'll show some examples. But today I'd like to go specifically to Africa, and I'm going to look at Tanzania. So you can see all of these little icons here. If you click on them, it'll come up with a picture of the instrument as well as a description, and you can hear the sound. I'm not sure if people who are watching today have these dunduns in their classroom. I know they're widely available around Melbourne. I've certainly got some. They're a fantastic drum. Let's have a listen. That's an example of a drum from, it was Tanzania, I think. This one is a talking drum from the Congo. And the reason it's called a talking drum is that the strings that are on it, right there, are compressed when it's held under the arm, and then the pitch of the drum gets higher, and as the arm is taken off them a little bit and the ropes slacken and the pitch goes lower. This is a Bimbe drum from Congo. Let's have a listen to this one. That's just a couple of the instruments from Africa. And obviously there's a few more there if you were in the classroom that you could explore with students before you went into the studio. And as you can see, lots of other instruments around the world that you can sample there. I'm just going to take you into the studio now. And I'm going to create just a little African piece of music from the instrument sounds in here. So with the library, it's designed so that you can just hover over the icons and just go in straight away and use it. It's fairly easy to use. But if you're coming across any of the functions and you're thinking, oh, I don't know how that actually works, although I've tried it, you can go back to the how to use section, and there's descriptions of everything there. So I'll select a country here. I'm going into, I go back to the Congo where we were earlier, and there's some sanzas, which are a bit like the mbira instruments that you can get in other parts of Africa. Might drag that sound in there. And obviously you could explore a lot more sounds by scrolling down, but just for today's purposes, we'll go to another country. We went to Tanzania before. Not sure if I'm pronouncing that the right way. Tanzania, isn't it? It's Tanzania. And this is a dundun we were looking at. And there are lots of different, like in some countries you will go there and they've got a lot more samples, but in this one, they've collected just a lot of rhythms on the dundun. That's quite a nice one. We might drag that in. Now, already I'm thinking it's sounding a little bit too soft to actually blend well with the top track. So I'm going to go in and just adjust that volume a little bit, and we'll see how the balance goes when I play it. Great. So that would be the start of a little composition. Obviously, when you're clicking and dragging samples around, you can, I found it useful to do say a composition where we'd examined binary or ternary form and get students to choose what they would like to do there. So they've got some structure to work around. That's a really good way to start. Sound and silence is a really good one for younger students. So say, okay, I'd like you to do this many bars with sounds and then leave some rests. So there's all sorts of possibilities there. I'm going to stop sharing that now. I think I've shown a little bit about the African sounds available in Sound Infusion. And then we're going to have a look at, we've had a look at that slide. We're going through, had a look at that. To have a look at the second step of our blended learning idea today. And this is a real favourite of mine. I have been teaching this song in classrooms for an embarrassingly long amount of time. I think I first learnt it from an ABC sing book in, I think it was the early 1990s. So that was a long time ago. And when I went into research a little bit more about it for this presentation, I realised that it's a well-known song and that I'd actually over the years simplified it a little bit. So it was a nice refresher to go in and go, oh, that's more like the original. So yeah, it's interesting how you sort of think you've learned something and you use it and you use it, and sometimes you can even change it yourself over the years. Anyway, this is a good song to demonstrate some African culture to kids. I would say you could play this from, say, year 2 to year 4 would be an ideal age range. But you could probably use it with older students as well, depending on how you swing it, I guess. I use it with groups always because there's a game element. So it's good to have students sitting in a circle, and you would have from 6 to 30 students for this one. I think more than that gets a bit unwieldy. The first thing you do before you start any of the game part of it, which is what I teach before the singing actually, is to discuss differences in the way that children play. So you'd explain that we're going to be learning an African children's song, and we're going to be learning a game that goes with it that uses sticks. And you talk about why would you be using sticks to play with. I find it useful to have a conversation around the fact that a lot of African families are just like us. They can go to Kmart or wherever and buy toys. They have Nintendos, they have computers, they go to university, they do whatever. But these kinds of songs come from families in Africa that are very poor, and they still find ways to play. And that's why you have the sticks. That's the way I put it. You might find a better way of putting it. Anyway, so you have that discussion. And then what's really fun, if you've got trees in the playground, is to take your class, or in terms of teaching, I found it was probably better to take my first class and then we use their sticks. But anyway, classes love going outside to find a tree and grab some sticks. They love that. You come back, you sit in your circle, you make a little bonfire of sticks in the middle. And you say, we'll come back to these sticks later. And then you need to talk about your stick passing patterns. So what you do is at that point, you'll be singing the song to them and you'll be saying to them, okay, imagine you've got your stick in your hand. This is how the pattern goes. You're holding your stick in your right hand, and then obviously you have to have a conversation about left and right, which is always useful. And you sing the song to them and you say, watch my hand, and see what happens. So it's Banua, Banua, Banua yo, Banua, Banua, Banua yo. And you do that 3 times. And you say, okay, what happened when I said yo? And people would notice that you're holding out your hand. And okay, that itself is the start of the game if you want to do it that way. But I like to jump straight in and say, you're not just doing it that way. The whole circle has sticks. So when you are passing the stick that way, you're at the same time grabbing the stick from the left. So when you say yo, both of your hands go out. You pass the stick one way and you grab the stick from the other way. So I don't know if you could see my hands through this camera, but it's like this. Banua, 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 you're both hands out, okay? The next part of the song is a great catch-up moment where everyone just waves their sticks up in the air. Neni ala no, neni ala no, neni ala no, Banua ala no. So that's a different move. Okay, so to start with, it probably takes 5 or 6 goes, and you just reassure kids and you say, it's going to take us a while to get this right. So we need a bit of a rule about if you've got no sticks, or if you've just got too many sticks, just put your hand up and the whole game will stop and we'll help you. kids love helping each other, so that's fine. And you know, if you get that rule in early, it's really helps a lot to teach the game. Like I said, I only find it takes 5 or 6 times to get that stick passing pattern organized, and then you can sing the whole song. So I've got a great recording here. I'll just play you a bit of it. The translation is, "Don't cry, pretty little girl." Idea. That's quite fast, that song. So playing it at that speed would only be after they've done it for a few lessons in a row. Something I love doing them when we played it for 2 or 3 lessons is getting a leader, one of the students to be a leader, and they can change the dynamics of the tempo and everyone follows that leader. So that's a really good way to make the game more interesting as well, once you know the basic rules. And obviously you heard in that little recording there, it's a great round to sing as well. So yeah, just a great little tool to have in your back pocket, that song. Lots of little elements to add in and out, and a nice bit of syncopation in the middle as well. So speaking of where songs like this come from, we did that at the start with our talk about, you know, why are we gathering sticks for our game. I wanted to show you a video that was shared with me by a colleague from Cultural Infusion, actually, who said, "Oh, you're doing that presentation," because I'd played this game with them at Cultural Infusion. They loved it. And my colleagues sat around and passed bits of rolled up paper. It was really fun. And he said, "Oh, that song that you're teaching, I think it'd be great to have this video in there showing people where you know, songs like that come from." So I'm about to show you a video now that when we're watching it, you'll notice that the quality of the video is quite poor. This was posted on social media by US-based jazz musician Lionel Lurke. I'm not sure if I've pronounced that the right way, who was born in Benin in West Africa. So it fits in with our theme today. This is just where songs like Banua originate. I've found with most of my students, if I just said to them, I want you to focus on the music elements of what you're seeing and hearing, they know what to do with that now, because every week when I see them for music, we start with 5 minutes of eyes closed listening and then sharing music language about songs and music rather than emotional language. And they're getting very good with using their music terminology. Sometimes we say, "How did it make you feel?" But most of the time it's about just getting that music language happening. So that really helped them understand what was going on here. They were thinking about form, they were thinking about pitch, they were thinking about rhythm, they were thinking about who's that dancing and why are they wearing that. It was a really good conversation. Let's see this one. It's a really interesting recording. So yeah, I found that really interesting. The kids picked up straight away on the different tones of the different thicknesses of sticks and logs and things. I asked them deliberately about a bass instrument. What would you use as the bass instrument? What was the bass instrument in that recording? And most people had noticed it was either a suitcase or a big plastic container that was in the background. So yeah, lot going on there to talk about. And like I said, when it was posted on social media, there was a lot of actually quite well-known US jazz musicians having debates about the rhythms, about the structure, about what was going on in that piece of music. If you saw the chat thread, you'd be quite surprised by how much was in there. Which brings me to my third blended learning step. I've been having a great deal of fun with this one in my classroom. So it's another one I've done at Alphington, and my year fours are probably going to be performing this in a concert next term. Yes, we're still doing concerts apparently, so we're working towards it. So they've learned this great West African dance that I found, and it's part of a lesson plan that I wrote to go with a cultural infusion group. So in that lesson plan, I have some background about the history and culture of the djembe and the history and culture of the dundun, because they're both drums that are used in this dance that we'll watch in a minute. Really surprised me to find out one of the common stories about the history of the djembe, you may have heard this one or not, is that a long time ago, again, I don't have the time frame with me or the lesson plan to refer to because it wouldn't display today, unfortunately, but a long time ago, there was a woman sitting with a wooden bowl, and she was pounding grain in her bowl, and she pounded through the bottom of it, and her husband was carrying goat skins that he'd collected from drying, and he got her to turn it upside down and put the goat skin over the top of it, and thus the first djembe was born. I thought that was a great story about the djembe. The dundun, on the other hand, is a drum from royalty, and it's been used in with royal families in Africa for a long time. So actually it is another West African one as well. So in this lesson plan, there are links to Australian and international baccalaureate. As I said, there's a bit of history about the drums, and there's a link to this, which I will show you, this fantastic performance that was a flash mob that was filmed in Flinders Street doing this amazing dance. There's some detail of the dance steps, and I can talk you through that after we've seen the dance. And yes, it was trialled with Alphington Primary School students as well. Let's have a look at it. So there's some great conversations that we had after viewing this in the class. Firstly, the kids were very excited that it was at Flinders Street Station. That was like one of the most important things for them. But soon after that, they were talking about how much they loved the moves and how fast it was. So the tempo was very fast. They also noticed that there were cars straight afterwards. So we had that conversation about why were they doing it there? And we had to talk about what is a flash mob. I talked about the planning they would have had to do to get the music to the right length, to get the dancing to go with the music at the right length, because there was no special compensation for the fact they were dancing on the road. They had to time it to the light cycle, and they did it exactly. and didn't disrupt anyone doing it. They just had it all planned out. So that was a fascinating conversation to have about the kinds of places and ways that you can perform, which was really good. And so what I did after that is I introduced them. I sort of found that there was 8 or 9 main steps, which I had written down, and then I took them through each step, modeling myself, as well as using the video to remind us of what the moves were. And gradually we got to a point where if I put the music on, they can just do that at that speed, which is great. The kids just love it. It's a really good activity. Was going to do that, and at the moment this doesn't seem to be sharing. We'll see if it can come up. No, it's not. So we might be a bit finishing up a bit sooner than we thought. I was going to show you some other software and how it compares with Sound Infusion software, like I think we've got GarageBand in there. I think we have Soundtrap in there, and there were 3 or 4 other ones that we were comparing. When we did compare the 5 platforms, we found that all were available as a free trial and include collaboration. Soundtrap and Sound Infusion have demo tracks, but Sound Infusion is the only software that's made in Australia, has lesson plans, 50 of them, and includes historical and geographical information about the instruments used. So yeah, that was an interesting comparison to do. So yeah, I've actually zipped through this because I was missing a couple of documents today, and I'm happy to open up to audience questions and comments straight away.
Oh, sorry. Sorry. Look, if you unshare your screen now, Nisha.
Will do. Yep, I will.
And then I'll get a look at everybody, and I'll have a look at let's look at the chat room. And
do you think it's worth me trying to find those documents, or are you happy to have an early one tonight?
Look, if it's easy and quick that you think you can possibly
I'll see if I can. I just didn't want to do it with sharing my screen because everyone would see my whole computer. Of
course, absolutely.
Yeah. So
what you can do is just turn your I'm not sure if you stop your video at the bottom, we won't see while you go and look for things.
Well, you're not looking at it now. You're not looking at it now, are you?
All I can see is your cultural infusion.
Good. That's it. Yeah, so I should be able to find it for you. My apologies about this, but it's just like one of those things that happen sometimes.
Well, anyway, we'll press pause there for a moment. Yes. Is there anyone that has any questions of Nisha up to this point on her presentation so far? No questions. No. Lindley Williams, what's your question?
Hey, Nisha.
Hi, how you going?
Thanks, Kevin, for putting me on the spot there. You're just checking up on me.
That's right.
Oh, no, I've been absolutely riveted, Nisha. It's awesome what you do. I live about 2 blocks from Alphington Primary School, so I might pop down one sometime.
That'd be great. Have a coffee.
Yeah, I was actually my slowness to unmute and turn on my camera was because I was actually looking for that flash mob. That would be, I teach year 7 to 12, and yeah, it's easy enough to find, I'm assuming.
Yeah, it should be. It should be. And I know Kevin will be sharing the presentation, so you should be able to just search it up from that easily enough. Yeah.
The video of tonight's presentation will be on the Amuse YouTube channel, which is very easy to find. You go to our homepage, over to the right-hand side, click on the YouTube icon, and it will take you to the page that has all of the videos from this particular series going back 2 weeks ago when we started. So now, if there are no further questions, look, I've got a comment. Nisha, some of that software is really fantastic.
Thank you.
Yeah. So integrated and really easy to use, and be able to sort of hear all of these world sounds at the touch of a button, authentic world sounds at the touch of a button. Really,
Yeah,
really.
if you don't mind, can I share my contact details at Cultural Infusion, so that if
sure.
anyone
Just
wants...
type that up in the chat.
Yep.
And that gets saved. So that'll be very easy to do.
Yeah, I'll just bring that here. So yeah, if anyone who's attended tonight, you can get like a free sample, introduction. Just anyone can by going to Sound Infusion. But if you want the full access, people who've attended tonight, you could just contact me directly and I can organise you to have full access for a month or something like that, so that you can get access to all those sounds and things. So just looking for the chat now. Stop share, and I'll put that in. Yeah, I'll just put my email address in the chat. And so if you've got any questions, I'm happy to talk about teaching ideas whenever, that's why I'm here. Happy to share stuff. Yeah.
Well, if there's